Let's start with Star Thomas. It is a position group that we talked about it last week. A lot of faith, love Peyton Lewis and what Deshaun Bishop brings, like DeJuan Morris and Justin Baker, but kind of needed a veteran in that group to get into the rotation. Brent, it looks like Star Thomas is a guy that can be just that. He's been productive at every different stop along the way. He started in junior college, 2 years at New Mexico State, a year at Duke, and now coming over to Tennessee, and he'll be a part of that rotation next fall.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. I think it says a lot about what the running back market is, because I think this is a pretty productive guy to be in the transfer portal where he's at. Obviously, Tennessee gets him, but in terms of the other opportunities he had out there, Cal seemed to have some interest in him. Austin, Central Florida had interest in him, but I think it tells you a lot about sort of the running back market, if you will, in some ways. But this is a guy who 800 yards rushing or around that at Duke, productive everywhere he's been. I think he can step in and be a nice piece to a running back room that's got some interesting pieces. I mean, I think some real talent and some unproven work in there, but what will be a pretty deep group now, or a pretty solid group now for Darrell Sims to work with.
Yeah, I mean, could they have survived next year with 4 running backs? Yeah, if everybody stayed healthy. I mean, they didn't have to have anybody. But, let's look at this past year. Had Peyton Lewis got hurt against Ohio State, I mean, they were going to go to a walk-on. After him. So, I mean, you just never know when you get to that point in the season where, somebody's left to go to the portal, somebody's hurt, another guy's hurt, all of a sudden you're down to one. You need that extra body. And Star Thomas is a very quality player who I think, wanted a shot to play in this league. Probably took a little bit less money to play here than he could have elsewhere. And, we'll get a crack here. I mean, Deshaun Bishop and Peyton Lewis, to me, would still be the two that are considered to be the front runners for the most carries. But you just don't know what you have until you get them here. Look at a year ago, Brent. I mean, everybody assumed that Miles Kitselman was just the extra body, and then he got here in spring, and everybody said, this guy's actually a little better than we thought. And then next thing you know, he's the leading guy in the tight end room. So, we'll see what happens when they get to spring practice. What does he bring to the table?
Yeah, I think it's interesting too, guys, when you look at this. I mean, and it's not fair, but how much did Deshaun Bishop's injury stuff over the course of the last couple of years give you a little bit of pause as to what your depth is like? And I don't think that's fair to Deshaun, Rob, when you look at it. I mean, he's the guy who's been productive. It's not his fault he hurt his ankle. And I don't think he's a fragile human being when you look at the amount of carries he's had. But the fact that he's not made it through 2 seasons the last 2 years, he's not been available the entire year. Did that give you a little more of maybe we need to make sure we've got enough depth there and some experience so that we're not, in a situation where our backup is only a freshman. That's our only option.
I mean, that's totally how I looked at it. Now, AP's way more in the weeds with it than I am as far as, the nuts and bolts. But just for me personally, I mean, it totally felt like depth, and just what you said, Hubbard. You don't want to go in, maybe you're a snap away from relying on a true freshman, and I don't think it's a knock on Deshaun. I just think it's the nature of that position in the SEC. I mean, it's not uncommon for your top guy to either miss a game or two or be questionable for 2 or 3 weeks in a row while he deals with an ankle sprain. So no, I mean, I think it was just a reflection of the running back room being kind of unique. You got 4 scholarship guys, but you don't have anybody that is an upperclassman, a senior, and you're a heartbeat away from 2 freshmen being all up in your game plan.
Well, I mean, you look at both running back and receiver. There's a lot of parallels there between the two. I mean, at running back, I mean, Lewis is a true freshman who played some but didn't play a great deal. Deshaun Bishop is a redshirt freshman, same thing. And the other 2 are going to be true freshmen. Look at wide receiver. I mean, you've got you have 7 currently. You have 4 of which have never played a college snap because Amari Jefferson didn't play this past year. 2 of which played little to none. And then Chris Brazel, who, did pretty well at Tulane, but was not near the impact guy that we all thought he would be at receiver. So, I mean, same thing there. I mean, this is an offense that has a lot of unknown going into the offseason. So to be able to bring in a guy like Star Thomas, who, at the ACC level put up 1,000 combined yards last year, I think that's a really solid get considering where you're at sitting here on January 21st, as second semester starts on campus.
All
I
right,
mean, I think
so-
it's much more than just adding a body because of what you just mentioned. I mean, the ACC level had over 1,000 combined yards. He's proven that he can catch the football out of the backfield. I know that's not necessarily what Tennessee's offense is about, but he can do that. He was an all-conference player 1 year at New Mexico State. Just looking at the stat sheet and doing research on him, I mean, he's looks like he's not missed significant time whatsoever. So he's a durable guy, and more than anything too, it's a guy that obviously is going to come in and play, but I think I don't know his leadership style. I don't know if he's a vocal leader, if he's a lead by example. I don't know if he's a leader at all. I have no clue. But having that type of guy to step into the room, Brent, and seeing his track record, and then you have two young guys who sky's the limit for a guy like Peyton Lewis, but two young guys who have already had their fair share of injuries, had to go about just the day-to-day grind and all that. I think that it's going to be beneficial in more ways than just on the field. I think he's a guy that is going to be a nice role model in that room, and I think it's going to make that whole group better.
Yeah, we'll see how he blends in. We'll see how he adjusts to it. I mean, he obviously transitioned into Duke well from New Mexico State, so this is not new to him. AP, I'll go back to your point, and I'll just become the general's quarters posters here and the YouTube commenters here.
46%. I was 46%.
And go where's you're talking about getting a proven running back because of the parallels to the wide receiver. Where's the proven wide receiver in the portal?
Well, I think you let it play out. And again, if we're sitting here come the weekend and there's no traction with anybody, I think that's a little bit problematic. I mean, they can always go to the spring portal, but I think that's just something you want to try to avoid if you can. I think Tennessee needs some help at receiver. We'll see if anything transpires. Everybody asked about Amari Evans. I told you I didn't believe Tennessee was doing anything there or doing much there outside of just some initial conversations. I don't believe he is in play here. We'll see if anybody at Notre Dame or Ohio State enters the portal that would catch Tennessee's eye, because they'd be the last two teams that will have this 5-day portal window. Now that they played last night, and they'll begin today. And then, I mean, how many schools can get players in at that point as well? Like, let's say somebody goes in that you have interest in. I mean, how many schools are you realistically battling it out for? I'm with Hubs that drop an ad isn't what it used to be, but if you started like, let's say January 6th, January 7th, January 8th, any of those time in that time range, can you get a kid in this late? I mean, maybe you can. I don't know. We'll see. But I think you just kind of let it play out. Like I said, if you get to the weekend and Tennessee's not really in play with anybody, that is to me a bit problematic.
Yeah, I don't think the drop ad deadline's even a thing anymore. It's like the old 85 number. Everybody always worried about the 85 number. I don't think you worry about drop ad deadline. Tennessee welcomed in 2 high school freshmen last year, 2 days before spring practice started. That was in the middle of March. They got them into school. So
they had to do online stuff between January 1st and
I still think you can get guys in school. So I don't think for other schools that's a huge issue anymore. I think there's a billion different ways to make that work. But the point is, do they find somebody who's a more proven person, more proven body to go into that receiver room? That'll be interesting to watch over the course of the next few days and the next couple of weeks for sure. And again, we may have more coaching changes. You never know what's going to happen.
Well, I mean, that's probably the best point is who is going to get a job you didn't see coming? Who's going to leave a job? I mean, like you go to the basketball route. Who saw, some of the changes? Who saw Tony Bennett leaving 5 minutes before the season started? Who leaves in March that just says, I can't do this? And then you open up a 30-day window for a team that you're like, ooh, that's a guy that we might have interest in. Like, I mean, that's probably the best point is like, because we've seen that the last few years is you've seen a couple of jobs. Obviously, Nick stands out the most a year ago, but we've seen a couple of jobs come open in that January, February timeline for whatever reason, whether it's a head coach going to be a coordinator in the NFL, a head coach getting an NFL job, whatever, or just retiring altogether. So, that's probably the best point Hubs just made.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like a lot of college head coaches are in play to be NFL head coaches, but
an NFL coordinator, though.
That's what I was going to say. You could be an NFL coordinator, although not many people are going to walk away from $6 or $7 million and take a $5 million pay cut to be a coordinator. But we live in a world where Chip Kelly walked away from UCLA to just because he didn't want to deal with it, and he wanted to be a coordinator. So certainly anything is possible. That's why nothing is done until it's done at this point in time when you talk about the transfer portal.
Yeah, just a couple of years ago, the Boston College head coach left to go and coach for the Packers. So, yeah, I mean, anything's possible for sure.